Yo, Kayla, your skin used to break out so often, right? Can you show us your skin now?
Of course.
So Kayla came to me a few weeks ago, frustrated with her recent repeated breakouts. I immediately thought it could be that her skin barrier had been broken because she doesn't use a barrier cream. So I recommended her the one I've been using, which uses capsulized ceramide technology, so the ceramides don't just get washed away. Oh, by the way, I use Estira's Ato Barrier 365 cream because it keeps my skin protected the longest.
A few weeks ago, I found a post on X that stopped me mid-scroll. Someone shared a hook format that's currently crushing it on paid ads, and they had the receipts. A screenshot straight from Meta Ads Manager showed 2 ads running this exact format. Combined, these ads had spent around $70,000, and the returns, a 2.56 ROAS on one and 3.47 on another. That's incredible. So what's the format? It's a FaceTime call. This isn't just one creator talking straight into the camera, the format that we've all seen 1,000 times, but instead it's 2 people on a call talking like actual friends. And the reason it works is simple, it's pattern interruption. We've built up a mental filter for talking head ads, and we've seen these kinds of podcast clips. Our brains skip right past them. A FaceTime call, however, looks very different. It doesn't look like an ad, it looks like something new. So instead of scrolling past it, you can't help but stop to see what is going on. So with that, let's move on to step 1 of how to create a FaceTime ad with AI UGC. Alright, step 1 is creating a realistic image of your ideal creator. For this, I'm using OpenAI's GPT Image 2, and the reason I default to this one is simple. It just gets you realistic results way easier than most other tools out there. But the thing is that the tool isn't what makes or breaks this. Your prompt is. You need to be specific about how this creator looks and specific about the background they're sitting in. Vague prompts get you the generic AI look. Specific prompts get you something that could pass as a real person's phone camera roll. So to make this easier, I use a framework I call PLACE, and that stands for person, lighting, atmosphere, camera, and environment. Let's go through each one. First, we have person. This is how your creator actually looks. And the key here is specificity. Don't say early 30s, say 32 years old. Be very specific. Don't be vague. Give a gender, an ethnicity, a skin tone, and a certain build. Now, you can go deep here. Jawline shape, eye color, brow weight, nose bridge, but honestly, most of the time you don't need to, unless you have a very specific face in your head that you're trying to recreate. That level of detail is honestly overkill. That one thing that probably matters a lot though is their ethnicity. You want to get that specific. Now here's a pro tip. Describe the expression in that exact moment. Something like looking like she's about to share a story. Why does this matter? Because that line becomes the first frame in your AI video. If you're going for a UGC style story format, the phrase sets the tone perfectly. But if you want more energy right out the gate, you can swap it out for something like excited instead. Second, let's move on to lighting. So lighting refers to how light falls in the shot. Think about it. A professional studio spends a lot of money making sure light is intentional. Shadows are cancelled out. Everything looks polished. You want the opposite of that. For UGC style content, you want ambient natural light. So in your prompt, you can say things like overcast window from the front, or warm overhead room lights, or even outdoor open shade. And here's the line I add to basically every prompt. Slight underexposure, one side a touch darker than the other, no visible effort to balance shadows. That one sentence does a lot of heavy lifting for realism. Third, we have atmosphere. This is the mood and texture of the shot. You're going for that flat color grade, no cinematic warmth, a slightly over-processed look, like a phone photo that's been auto-enhanced. You want mild compression artifacts and no film grain, because phones just don't produce that kind of film grain. So explicitly prompt no professional color grading, phone camera quality, and no studio lighting, and that would give you this atmosphere. Next, we have camera. This refers to what camera you want the image to look like it's shot from. The fastest way to instantly sell that organic look is to specify shot on iPhone 14, or any iPhone for that matter. For framing, you can go with a vertical 9:16 aspect ratio with your subject centered, or slightly low in frame, because that's how people naturally hold their phones when they film themselves. Go slightly above eye level for that classic selfie angle, or straight on at arm's length. And if you want to push realism even further, add slight lens distortion and slight digital noise to sell that authentic phone sensor feel. Fifth, and lastly, we have environment. This is about where they are, and it needs to look like a real space someone actually lives in. A kitchen counter with stuff on it, a bathroom mirror, couch with a throw pillow, or a car interior. Mild clutter is your friend here. It's realistic. One thing to avoid though is bokeh. Phone lenses at close range barely produce any background blur, so keep your background moderately in focus and clearly identifiable. That blurry background noise is a giveaway that something's not a real phone shot. Here's an example prompt that I used when creating this video. You can pause it to take a look. So what I'll do is I'll take this prompt that I've created and I'll just feed it into GPT image 2, and I got this output that I've used. Okay, step 2, writing the FaceTime book screenplay. What I do is create a simple table in Notion with 3 columns: character, visual, transcript. Character just tells you who's acting out which part. Visual is the movement you expect from them in that moment. And transcript is the actual line that they are saying. For a FaceTime hook specifically, you're going to need 2 characters. In my example, I named mine Audrey and Kayla just to keep prompting simple and consistent. Audrey is the one leading the call. You can see that from the transcript. She's the one asking Kayla to show the current condition of her skin. And for her visual direction, Audrey is asked to wait through the last 3 seconds of this 8-second clip, giving Kayla the moment to actually show her skin on camera. Kayla, on the other hand, waits quietly for the first 5 seconds, giving Audrey the space to speak. Then once she hears the request, she responds with a simple, polite, "of course," before leaning in to show her face more clearly. Now here's something you probably noticed. If you look closely, the phrase "like she's talking to a friend" shows up in almost every single prompt, and that's intentional. That's the context I'm feeding the model on purpose. Why? Because I want the movement, the tone, the voice, all of it to feel natural, not like someone reciting a line. It needs to feel like 2 friends actually catching up on FaceTime. Now for the actual generation. So I use Gemini Omni for this. Right now, it's the only model that can generate UGC-style videos this realistic at such a low cost. And even better, every user gets 50 free credits a day. So you can try this entire workflow without spending a single cent. I did end up paying for extra credits, but that was just so I could do more research and experimentation for this video specifically. You don't have to. Now with the screenplay we wrote earlier, actually generating the videos is the easy part. You just copy and paste it into the input box on Google Flow using the following template. Now one thing I want to flag is specifically the accent. This matters more than you think because it keeps your character's voice consistent across every single clip you generate. Now here's an actual prompt I used for this project. You can pause to read it. Now you probably noticed something weird in this transcript. The product name is spelled out phonetically. That's not a typo. That's intentional. And there are 2 reasons for it. First, it makes sure the product name actually gets pronounced correctly. Second, and this was the one that surprised me, I found that words outside the English language messes with the character's voice entirely. In one of my earlier attempts, I dropped the actual product name into the transcript, and my character's accent randomly shifted to Australian out of nowhere, just from one unfamiliar word. So phonetic spelling isn't optional here, it's the fix. Alright, for step 4, this is where everything comes together visually. We're going to use a Canva template to make this look like an actual FaceTime call. I've linked the exact template I used in the description, so you don't have to build this from scratch. Once you open it, make a copy of it so you can edit. Then there are really just a few simple edits that you need to make. So now let's go over to this Canva template. Change the name on the top left corner of the person in this bigger screen. To do that, you want to come down to the timeline here on Canva, and then you click this first rectangle on the top. See that it's being highlighted. Next, you want to ungroup this so that you can specifically find the name. So for example, I have Kayla over here, and we want to change this. So if we zoom in here, I can double click this, and for example, I'm going to change this to Audrey. Right, and you want to fit everything in this rectangular pillbox in the background as well, so you can just manually adjust it just like that. Next, because this cuts off at 3 seconds, there's a second part where it goes back to Kayla, so you want to come here and edit this as well. So similarly, we'll come here and ungroup this. Now looking for Kayla, we want to change this to Audrey as well, not forgetting to adjust this so that it all fits. Okay, great. The reason that it is being cut at 3 seconds is because there's an animation that runs at 3 seconds to hide these FaceTime call buttons after 3 seconds of inactivity. The thing is that when you ungroup an element like this one, any animations that were applied before disappears. So we're going to have to redo it. What I'm going to do now is to group these back together and reapply an animation for this section to disappear off the screen like it did before. To do that, I will go to the top right, click on animate, and I'll use Canva's custom animation. This feature allows you to create your own animation just by dragging an element to where you want it to go. So what I'll do is I'll hold shift to create a straight line and simply drag this section or this selected element off the screen. Just like that. Now if I were to go back and play this, you can see that the animation plays. Now to make this even smoother, we want to come back here to animate and change this part. We want to change movement styles to smooth. So it just looks that bit better. Now we're going to change the speed as well to about 75%. So somewhere around here. It should be good. Let's play this back to check. Alright, perfect. Now let's move on to the next part, which is changing the video in the bigger screen. To do that, we're going to come down here to the very bottom of the timeline, and we want to change this video. Simply, you can delete this and then go into uploads. So before that, you want to upload your generated UGC videos into Canva as well, so you can, and then you can find your videos here. I'm going to pick this clip. I'll drag it back where I've just deleted that clip. So it just fills it in, and that's it. You can see that the video has changed. It's easy as that. Now, the next part is to change the smaller screen. You can find a clip on this line, or you can even click on this to find where this clip is. Same thing, you want to delete this, and you want to drag in the clip you want to swap it with. So for me, I'm going to use Kayla's clip. Let's put it to the start. Now notice that this clip is the full length. We're going to cut this at 3 seconds so that we can run the animation to hide these FaceTime call buttons due to inactivity. So we'll come here, set your timeline to be at 3 seconds, and then while selecting the clip, press S to split your clip into 2. So you see that this is done. Now I can move this down here to fill in that gap. Next, for the rest of the clip, we want to replace it with this one. So for this, we're going to have to ungroup this. Now there's a lot of things here, but you want to look for the video clip, which is this one. Delete that. And now you have all these things, all these together. Now you want to select this and go to the top. Look for corner rounding. Put that at 100. Then of course you want to resize this to fit the correct size. To do that, I will match the FaceTime call buttons. So you can see I try to align it to the top as well as the bottom. And then I just try to make sure that the gap is at the correct size. Just like that. That should work. Now for the next step, you want to group all of these together. Left click. Click on group. And now you want to redo the animation. So to do that, while selecting this, go to animate. Click on create an animation. I'll just drag this off the screen so that the buttons become hidden. So I'll hold shift. So I want to click on create an animation. And then while holding down shift, I'll drag this over such that I can just hide these FaceTime call buttons. But make sure to be careful not to move it too much. Okay, I think that looks about right. Now similarly, we're going to change the speed to about 75%. And then change movement style to smooth. Next, you can come over here, and we're gonna have to change this to the same size as well. So click on this, and then we want to just resize it. Not forgetting to change your corner rounding. We can resize this to fit. Okay, should be right. And that's it. Right, so that's all you have to do to replace these videos to your own AI generated UGC videos. Okay, now for step 5. We are writing the rest of the screenplay. After the FaceTime call ends, one of our 2 characters carries the video forward solo. In my case, that's Audrey. So now we need to write out her screenplay for the remainder of the video. For this part specifically, I'm not just winging the copy. I use a framework that shows up again and again in the highest converting TikTok ads out there. I actually made an entire video breaking down this exact framework, specific actionable methods the best performing ads are using right now to drive conversions. I've linked that video in the description for your convenience to reference. As for the screenplay table itself, it's basically the same structure as before. Visual, accent, transcript. By this time, there's one extra column, duration. And here's what that's for. Duration tells you how long to set your generated clip, so your script doesn't get cut off halfway through. To calculate this, I use a site called Words to Time set to the fast speaking setting. That gives me a realistic estimate of how long the line will actually take to say out loud. Once your screenplay is filled out, visual, accent, transcript, duration, you take that same prompting template from before and drop it straight into Google Flow using the Omni model. And that's it. That's your full second half of the video generated and ready to stitch together with the FaceTime clip generated earlier. Now for the final step of putting everything together. Once all your clips are generated, do one important check before moving forward. Make sure your background, your character, and your voice all stays consistent throughout every single clip. Nothing breaks immersion faster than a background that subtly shifts or a voice that suddenly sounds different 2 clips in. Once that's confirmed, it's time to stitch everything together in a video editor. Now, Google Flow does actually have a built-in editor, and it lets you combine two pieces of generated video fairly easily. But in my experience, it was laggy enough that it actually got in the way of the editing process. So instead, I just used DaVinci Resolve. It's free, it's powerful, and honestly, I already had it, so it made the most sense for me. Once everything's stitched together in the right order, when I'm in DaVinci Resolve, I'm just doing simple edits, like removing the start and the ends of each clip to make sure it flows nicely, putting different clips side by side so it becomes one continuous video. And also, I've sped up the videos to ensure that it doesn't feel too draggy for the viewer. So once everything's stitched together in the right order, FaceTime call, then Audrey's solo segment, you've officially got a complete, realistic UGC style ad built entirely with AI.